our next part of today's talk, my friends, come join us on Mondays if you're checking this out. We do these kinds of long talks about development news and whatnot throughout the day, and these come out as segments throughout the week. But if you're watching them and you want to come ask questions live and just chill, please join us. Mondays, 9 a.m. PST. So today, or rather this time for this talk, we're going to look at where the raft came from and why is it changing. In 4.1.1, the Argo Raft has gotten a huge improvement. It is buffed its storage capacity to 192, I think. 192 SU from 96. It has also lost its 4 major crates that were kind of the unique part of it. The whole idea of this ship was that it had a crane that would allow you to land, drop cargo, and take off. It kind of reminded me of that quick drop spaceship in the Clone Wars. I talk about this with almost every spaceship I see for some reason, because I just can't get over it. It was a thing that would drop the ATSTs, and you would basically just be able to land, drop off, and then take off real quick. This is our raft. This is our Star Wars raft. Ah, what a beauty. What a beauty. Can you guys all celebrate it with me? Celebrate it with me here. Thank you. Thank you. So that was the idea behind the raft, but now it's changing. Let's see what they were saying about it back then and then talk about why it's changing now.
One of the big roles in both real-world life and in Star Citizen is cargo hauling.
We've got lots of different ships in the game, and plenty of them can carry...
Let me add some context to this, please. So this came out November 25th of 2021. Always a grand old time to see stuff like this happen. November 25th of 2021, if you go back and look at the Star Citizen roadmap for, let's say, November 2021, let's see if that pops up. You will see that there was some belief, some possible expectation. Shout out to Odysseus Ithaca, by the way, for the amazing roadmaps. These were such a lifesaver back in the day. You see here that we had the cargo refactor planned. What? No way. So at the end of... Again, that was 2021, right? At the end of 2021, we were under the impression that within 6 months-ish, 7 months, we would be able to benefit from the raft's ability to carry. Now, this was actually a delay. I think if I look close enough, the original expectation was that... Oh, man. Yeah, okay. It wasn't on the roadmap at the time. So there was really no knowing about the cargo refactor or its specific timing. What we knew at that time is that... you want the links for this? Yes. So this is user Odysseus Ithaca. I'll just give you his Reddit. He posts these. He hasn't posted any in a while, it looks like, but he was posting them consistently for years. Anyways... That was sort of where we were with the cargo refactor. This idea that the game was about to change and this ship was going to bring in that change. It was going to be a big part of why they were doing it. It was going to really benefit us. And, well, you see how that played out.
Cargo, but we don't have many that are small and dedicated to cargo.
And this is where the Argo Raft really comes into play. So the Reinforced Advanced Freight Transport from Argo is a 2-player cargo transport ship.
It's a very beginner sort of vessel. It's got limited cargo capacity, but it's designed purely for the purpose of trying to transport your goods from A to B, while keeping you as safe as possible.
The Argo style is a strong style. You kind of know what you're going to get, and I think that's what helps really sell the ship's feel.
The rear half of the ship is definitely very contrasting to the front. I feel like one of our designers put it best when they described it as essentially an oil rig with engines strapped onto the back of it.
The Raft is primarily Argo's counter to the Freelancer.
Obviously, the Freelancers are far better equipped weapon-wise, but the
Oh,
Argo
yeah,
is far
dude.
better in the armor.
That no way, not anymore. I mean, that's just completely wrong, right? The Freelancer... Oh, wrong page. The Freelancer is carrying 66 SCU of cargo. Even the Freelancer Max is 120. So this thing is now carrying 70 SCU more cargo than the dedicated cargo hauling Freelancer. So the idea that this is a competitor to the Freelancer is just completely gone. They've changed the ships this thing is competing with. And that's important, I think, because again, you look at these ships as exactly what you think it's supposed to be, and whether that makes you happy or mad, it's a risky thing to do. Buying ships or depending on these ships to be exactly what they look like they are at this point in time is a risky bet, because things will change based on balance, based on what the game needs, based on how the gameplay's been fleshed out. And now if somebody made the choice of going Freelancer over Raft because they were competitors, the Raft is suddenly the much better option. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, the Raft, it still has all of its downsides compared to the Freelancer, but its upside, which was the fact that it carried as much cargo, is now an incredibly big upside. And none of those downsides got worse as far as I'm aware. Oh, maybe. We'll get back to that with the crane.
Capacity. It's not going to do well in a fight because its weaponry is quite small. It has a remote turret that the co-pilot controls that has size 3s on it, and it does have 2 size 1 slots that the pilot can equip something in, although it doesn't come with those weapons as standard. The ship itself can take up to 96 SCU and 3 32 SCU cargo containers that are held on the back of the ship. So at the moment, the cargo containers are actually a fixed part of the ship until we actually get the cargo refactor, at which point you'll then be able to remove them. There are
Yeah, totally.
other ships that are going to use external cargo like the Hull series, but the first one that will actually go out into the universe will be the Raft. It has dedicated VTOLs that rotate to give it that extra lift, regardless of what the...
Hold on, say that again.
Will use external cargo like the Hull series, but the first one that will actually go out into the universe will be the Raft.
Dude, that is so f***ing funny. Because the Hull C ended up using the cargo correctly, and the Hull A both used their external cargo correctly before the Raft did. I can't, man. Jesus, sometimes. CIG.
It has dedicated VTOLs that rotate to give it that extra lift, regardless of what the atmosphere is in the planet you're trying to take off from. It's going to be able to actually get out there even in the more heavy atmospheres. It has independent landing gear, the legs, the typical Argo legs that give it that nice firm support regardless of the terrain that you're landing on.
These are all legit benefits.
As you go inside the ship, it's split into 2 primary areas, the functional side and the side for the crew. So the functional side consists of the bridge, the airlock, which has got a ship-to-ship docking collar on it, engineering,
I really like the Raft's interior. When this came in, it was definitely one of the better interiors in the game.
and then the cargo control cab that's at the rear of the ship that gives you a nice view out onto the 3 cargo containers.
It's kind of like, honestly, it was like the definitive, this is how you should do a small
side
ship
for the crew
interior.
consists of habitation, which has a nice chow line, a seating area for you and your teammate to relax,
Small to medium,
as well as individual beds that double function as an escape pod in times when you might need it, as well as a fully fitted armory for 2 people that has 2 suit locker spaces for each of you, as well as weapon racks, and of course a bathroom.
I think the interior kind of was really successful in making sure that every space has a function. No matter where you're sitting in the ship, it feels like a functional ship. It feels like the ship has purpose.
If you think about the real world and how you want to transport goods, if you want to be in and out because that's your job, that's your profession, you don't want to have to open up your ship and let someone come on board and mess about. You just want to drop your actual goods and then move on to your next job. And that's something that the raft will allow you to do.
The reinforced...
Yes, okay, so they don't even talk about like how this was meant to work. I didn't realize that.
Doesn't come with those weapons as standard. The ship itself can take up to 96 SCU and 3 32 SCU cargo containers that are held on the back of the ship. So at the moment,
not a mention. All right. Maximize payload. No more hand loading crates. You'll be loaded up and ready to go or unloaded onto the next job. Blah, 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 blah. Freight made easy. It hauls serious weight with ease. 3 A32 exterior cargo containers make for hands-off, hassle-free loading experience with an impressive maximum payload of 96. Okay. Yeah, I don't think they ever actually explained how the ship was supposed to work. Wait a second. What about the wiki? What does that say? Okay, it did have a tractor beam, but that's it. There was no real talk about the actual crane working. Why would you choose it over the Freelancer Max? The Raft is designed to compete more against the base Freelancer than the Max. However, it holds its own in that it's designed from the ground up to support the quick loading and unloading of standardized 32 SCU crates. Whilst you can, of course, fit these into the Max, it takes much longer due to its relatively narrow opening. Is it possible to lift and detach preloaded containers with the holding devices at the ship's rear, thus gaining a time advantage when loading and unloading cargo? Whilst not implemented at release, this is the aim when the cargo requires physical loading and unloading. And to be quite honest, I think this is the most crucial and important part of the Raft at any point during its lifetime, and probably the main reason why I think this was not a great move on their part. I think they could have still increased its capacity, but there's some level of, it feels like you should be able to just drop the cargo off this ship.
3 32 SCU.
Like the way this looks, it just looks like you can press a button and it puts the cargo down for you. And I know they didn't say that that's the case, but then you go over to the freaking the thing and they're like, well, yeah, you'll get a time advantage because it has the holding devices at the back. A tractor beam's still nice. Does the tractor beam, is it capable of moving cargo containers as seen on cargo decks, and where does it sit? It said that the tractor beam sits on the rear of the ship to aid with loading and unloading. So I guess you are supposed to use the tractor beam for that, and it's not just its own standalone crane. Does the cargo, can the tractor beam actually grab? Wait, no, there it is! Hold the f*** up. Wait, this picture. I can't believe I almost just missed that. This picture right here. How do I bring this up? The concept art shows the thing doing the thing. It's always the concept art that gets you. CIG. They delivered concept art showing this ship having an automated unloading system, and now they're just replacing it with a tractor beam. Yeah, man, that hurts. Like I said, they should increase the capacity of the ship, sure, but to remove the capability of the ship to actually deliver all the stuff to the ground like this is really slowing the ship down from what it could have done. That's too bad. It's balance, and they're balancing it, and this is what they do to ships, and this is why I say don't buy them. But man, that's a big hit to the functionality of this ship. What would be cool is if they still had a whole grid up top here that you could put boxes on, but that whole grid goes down to the ground. Because imagine the speed at which you could operate if you were a part of an org and you could fly in, land, drop the boxes, and take off. And the rest of your org is just, they're living it up. They're moving the boxes, they're working at their own pace, but you're still able to go and keep making your runs. Now, you're gonna have to land and sit there and wait for them to pull all the boxes off the tractor beams. And it's just like, I don't know, taking away that uniqueness of the ship a little bit. It is a lot like the Reclaimer arm. And I'm hoping that with the Reclaimer arm they can still figure things out to allow for Fracture to use the Maelstrom system. But for this, I don't know if there's any reason for them to change this after this. It could go back to a system that allows that to drop off, but why not do that now? I say why not talk about that, but that stuff never comes up. I don't know if I have a rafting game, so I'm not sure I can jump in and look at it, specifically how it looks, but with 192 SU of cargo, this thing just got way more impressive. And yes, I do think the price will go up. Because as you can see, they're pitching it as a competitor of the Freelancer. So that'd be pretty weird for them to keep selling it at the price of the Freelancer when they've clearly made it a lot better. Yeah, they're losing a lot of physical stuff. Again, I do still think that we're going to get some stuff back because of Maelstrom, specifically when it comes to salvage and fracturing parts. I think that's just what they're waiting on there. But physical interactions have taken a step back, yeah. That's why I was so surprised when I saw we were still doing all the door presses and stuff with our hands. You've heard from a couple raft owners that they're excited for these changes because unloading and loading is apparently faster. Is that not what you've heard? It is faster. Not as fast as what was pitched. It's faster than what we have in game, but that's because the ship was nowhere near its functionality. But this functionality is, you would not be able to get 96 SCU of cargo off of this ship faster than if they could just drop down onto the ground. Now, we don't know if that's how it was going to work. Maybe it had to be one at a time. It could have been all kinds of complications. And 3 boxes of 96 SCU wouldn't be as slow as however many boxes of 8 SCU you're putting on your raft now. But the fact that you're going to fill a whole cargo grid with boxes and then you have to pull those off with tractor beams will be slower than dropping them down on arms. In retrospect, you're also getting more than twice the cargo capacity you were going to have. So it's a trade-off, and it feels like they're giving you some because they're taking some away. Realistically, it'll be folks soloing it, so it's not a big problem. But nothing else has changed. What you were saying would still have been true before. This still would have been used by a solo player. That player is still losing functionality. For the people who do find themselves on that edge case, the raft is a different ship now because of that. At least for now. In terms of expectations, I always try to set my expectations based on what CIG has said, not what's true in the game right now. But since they have not said anything else about the raft outside of these concept images, and now this thing is gone, I'm assuming that it won't have this functionality anymore. They could always go back to it, though. There's a look at it. You can check out Evenly. He does a lot of ship-related content. But yeah, it's just a pad, just a flat. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, turning off the whole grid and dropping all the cargo. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I would have hoped that they did with this. But no, this looks like it's very much made to just sit there connected to the ship like that. So that's where we are. That's the raft. And that's the newest update to the latest industrial ship. To be quite honest, folks, it continues. Going all the way back to the release of the Fortune, we are in the age of industry. I think it'll continue from here, and we'll see some salvage starters, or a salvage starter. Obviously, we've already seen the concept, and hopefully something for like scanning soon or something like that, or refining even better, or refueling. Any of them? Either way, there's our ship update for the week.